Hi, this is Tamika with Create a Generational Love Cycle. And today is February the 7th, 2022. And if you've been listening to my podcast, well, of course you have, you would hear me talking about something that I feel like I have plenty of treasures that I've collected over the years. That ever since I can remember, my mother has been sharing her words of wisdom that have turned into life lessons, life principles to live by, that she shared many of her dark moments and transmuted those to light by sharing them with us, and not in a mean or bitter way, but in a way to help build us up, that she didn't want us to go through the same things that she went through. And I believe that is the role, one of the roles as a parent, is that when we look at our experiences, it's not to reflect on the bitterness and what people did, but to learn from those lessons, to gather those life principles and store them in our heart, in our backpack, and carry them on to our other experiences, onto the generations, the future generations. And so, as I believe that every experience helps prepare us for the next one, that life is out to make us better, to evolve, to learn, to grow, instead of being bitter. And so, I've been sharing these principles, my mother's words of wisdom. The beginning of the year, I had the thought between November and Christmas of last year, during a restful time, that instead of those topics I had originally written down for this year, that I would really go into my mother's words of wisdom, that I would share that information with you guys. I've shared it over my 20 plus years as a nurse, and in my personal life, I've shared them with my children. I've shared them with my husband. I shared them with patients, clients that I've worked with, only to help them see the light, see their path, to uncover, if you will, often what I saw in nursing, my personal and professional life, unhealed wounds that took on physical form. The diseases, chronic health diseases that we see, many of them are from that unhealed wounds that we have in our lives. And often it is when we were a child that we collected those wounds, right? And they're still there. And we see them in every aspect of our lives, often in our financial, in our relationships, where we have trouble um, being with another person on all levels, emotional, spiritual, when we don't trust people, that we're still carrying we're carrying that pain. We haven't transmuted it to light, to allow others, to not only allow ourselves to see the pain, but allow others to see it as well. Because when we acknowledge, when we accept what has happened to us, we open the door for others to acknowledge and accept what happened to them. So, this podcast is all about transmuting, if you will, our pain into light and helping others find their healing path. And so, I am going to start this talk off with the fifth one that I'm talking about today, of my mother's principles. Originally, the initial one I talked about was give from the heart and expect nothing in return. That regardless of how someone treats you, what they do, it does not affect who you are at the heart, because God looks at the heart. And when the heart is right, the giving will be right. There'll be no expectations. Another one that I talked about was nipping things in the bud. How if we see things that we need to address, whether it's a plugged, sink, or we see our child saying negative things about someone, calling someone outside their name, that we do not let that continue on, that we nip it in the bud and we say, hey, that person is a human being, is life, that they were made just like you and they deserve the same respect. and honor as you do. And then the other thing that I just shared last week was you don't have to do anything to anybody. That we do not have to seek vengeance because there is a just law out there, the universal law of justice. That whatever happens, something out there will take care of it for you. That even for me, when I went through some of the experiences I did, it's easy to get angry and upset and feel betrayed and belittled and feel confusion. But my mom would tell us God is faithful, He's just, He's always there. And vengeance, in the Bible says, vengeance is not ours, it is the Lord's. That even if you do not believe in the Bible, know that there is something that is just out there. And my job is not to force anything on you, but to share my experiences, to share the light that I have seen, the path that I have traveled, and the words that have guided me, directed me, have lit my path so many times, enabling me to put a lot of my experiences in a healthier perspective. To not believe that just because I experienced something, that I am that. Because we are, as human beings, greater than our experiences. So let me get to the principle, Mother's Words of Wisdom, the life lesson for today. And I'm going to actually give you a few phrases to get us started. So see if you can guess what I'm going to be talking about today. So the first clue, if you will, is that it's a movable set of muscles. All right. The second clue is that it's well supplied with blood and has many nerves. And you're like, Tamika, everything in our body has blood, supplied with blood. It has many nerves. That's how we're able to live, right? All our body's organs are able to function because our tissues, our cells need blood. They need oxygen. They need those nutrients, those vitamins and minerals that come and allow the cell to do what it's supposed to do, to give our cells energy, right? And so let me give you another set of clues that will hopefully get you right where I want you to talking about today's life principle. Number one is that it helps to eat and drink. Aha. Number two, that it helps with sucking, like babies drinking milk. Number three, it helps with chewing, grinding, helps us with producing saliva. You probably got it. So I'm going to give you another one. Two more. Helps with swallowing, tasting. And the third one, the one that we're going to talk about today, and I know you got it now, is it helps with speaking. My mother would tell us, as long as people have a tongue, they will talk. I, like you, have experienced people saying some things about me that were untrue. I've heard demeaning words. I've been called a liar. I've been called other names outside of myself based on the history of African Americans, right? And when I talk about this, I don't want you to dread up or bring up negative, harmful things that people have said, right? Words that people said. Let me not label though. Words that people have said. I don't want you to bring that up. I can't control what you think. But what I want to bring you to is over the guilt and the shame and the hurt and the pain, and bring you to enlightenment that as long as people are able to talk, they will talk, right? People experience pain just like you. We all cry. We all have anger, guilt, resentment. We've experienced those things at some point in our life. And unfortunately, there are times when people project their pain on others, and they come out through words. And so what it allowed me to see, because my family and I, we talk once a week via Zoom. We see each other. And I told them that I would be sharing this life principle with you guys. Is that when my mom would share that, eventually at some point it clicked in. If I can't control what people say, they have a tongue, they will talk, then why do I need to waste my energy, my time, my money, counseling, whatever it may be, medications, anxiety because of what people are saying about you, anger, frustration, needing to go to anger management? Why would I waste my energy, money, and time on something that I cannot control? And there's a prayer that goes that, right? That, teach me the things that I can't control, things that I can't, help me to have the courage to change the things that I can, right? Something like that. And so eventually it got to a point too that there's a Bible verse that says that out of the heart the mouth speaks. And another one that talks about the tongue being a vile thing, is that if you think about out of the heart the mouth speaks, 9 times out of 10, what people are saying is not about you. It's about them. What they have internalized inside of them, what they have put in their heart towards you. And so again, if what someone is saying that can seem like it's really harmful or negative, if you want to label it, give it something, or not helpful, more than likely it's not because of you. It's because of something they have to deal with inside of themselves. And when you see that, when you literally see that and you understand, and not that, oh, I get it intellectually, but when you get it with your spirit, when you get it with your heart, when you get it with your mind, you realize, you get to a point that, oh, that's not about me. That's about you. That I don't need to get angry. I don't need to bring myself down to that level. That if I understand truly where the pain comes from, then I'm not going to sit here and be angry and upset at you and be anxious because of what you said to me, right? Because we've already dealt with the action being of the heart. And so if you allow that to sink in, and I had time for it to sink in as a child and growing up, that while it's not about me, that then we can say, let me give you that back to you. That I would say to myself, or even think it, pushing those words back to the person and not allowing those seeds to enter into my soul, my soil, right? My inner garden, my subconscious mind. Now, there are times when it was easier to do that and times where it's not so easy, especially when it's coming from people that you think should be there for you. And that's another myth that I've discussed before, titles, that you believe that just because they hold this title, they should be more in alignment with helping you and not using hurtful words. And you have to remember, personalities are personalities. People are people, regardless of their title, regardless, mother, father, uncle, aunt, cousin, coach, whoever they are, they experience emotions. They're human, right? It does not excuse them, but it definitely helps to put their actions in perspective so that you're not carrying around, or limit the amount of guilt, the frustration, the expectation from someone who can feel the same emotions that you feel and feelings. And so, again, I have used my mother's life lessons to guide and direct me to use as boundaries. Often we talk about boundaries and we talk about traumatic experiences, that if when these boundaries, these words of wisdom that my mom shared, became the framework, if you will, of my foundation, my outer foundation, and helping me to deter some of that stuff that come towards you, right? Some of those words. And so as I move forward as a parent, I'm encouraging my children, because I've still hear some words, and at times it does surprise me. I know it surprises me, but we cannot change or cannot control what people say, no matter how much you think you can. But I can control the foundation that I help to provide for my children, right? And so I can do that. And so that's what create a generational love cycle is about, is that how we can move forward in life from the lessons that we learn. How can we tell our children? What do we say to our children? And I tell them that the pain is real, that there are a lot of people who are out there hurting. And unfortunately, at times they project their pain on you. So, what I want you to see, and told my children that, and I've shared my mother's principle, I want you to see that often it's not about you. That yes, you have a job to assess yourself and say, did I say something to someone? And even whatever you have said, it is the other person's responsibility of how to internalize stuff. My brothers and I were talking about it yesterday, that sometimes people will take things out of context, right? That you've said something, but they go and blow it up out of proportion. I've been there. I've done that. And so we can't control that, but we can control what we think. And I encourage my children that, yes, assess yourself and what you have said and done. Apologize for it. But even know that after even an apology, you cannot control how someone reacts, right? And so, but you can't control how you react. That when you see that their pain is not about you, you push it back to them. You give it back to them mentally. You give it back to them and say, that is your pain. I want you to deal. I'm going to give it back to you because I'm not going to deal with it. It is not my pain. Right. And so create a generational love cycle. When I talk about principle, I want to ask you, what principles are you teaching your children? How are you helping them to build them up in such a way that they are stronger because of the storms that they go through? That they learn from the storms, and that they apply those lessons to their life, and they continue to build a legacy or create a legacy from the inside out. And so I hope that this podcast has been helpful to you, because just because people say stuff doesn't mean we have to internalize it. It means that, yes, assess yourself, but give it back to them so they can properly deal with their pain. Just on a side note, as I was thinking about my mother and her life lessons, I have been reading a book by Blythe Daniel and her mother, Helen. And it's called I Love You, Mom. And I'll have the link inside of the information about this podcast. And one of the things that I love about this book is paying tribute to mother, to your mother. That I believe that when we acknowledge and accept and voice gratitude for someone, we try to do it while they are alive. And I'm all for doing of honoring people that have made a huge impact on our lives, especially our mothers. And for those of you who say, well, I didn't have a mother that was like that. Whatever happened in your relationship, maybe it can be mended. Maybe you're not at a point where you want to mend it. But what I love about this book is that it's not only for people that want to pay tribute to their mother and honoring their mother and remembering the positive things, but also too, if you have not had a mother, there are many virtues, characteristics that are in this book that can help you be the mother that you didn't have. Because I'm all about becoming what you did not have. You take the good, you take the helpful, and you leave the rest. And so, again, I'll have that link in my podcast. I thank you so much for listening. Do know, again, we are responsible for ourselves, and we take responsibility for ourselves. We help our children to become more responsible for them, and that we continue the legacy that is worth fighting for. So, again, create a generational love cycle. That's how we're going to break the cycle of pain. This is Tamika Chambers, and I'm looking forward to discussing the next life principles with you that my mother taught me.